What was the one thing that kept the most powerful men in wrestling awake at night? It wasn't a rival promotion or losing ticket sales. No, it was the fear that their world champion, the man their entire alliance was built around, would go into a match and just refuse to lose. This is the insane story of how they found their solution, not in a flashy showman, but in a real-life wrestling monster they hired to be the one guy who could guarantee the title would change hands: Jack Brisco. Before wrestling was run by giant companies, it was run by an alliance, a huge, fragile group called the National Wrestling Alliance, or the NWA. This was not one company. It was dozens of promoters who were each kings in their own territory. From Florida to LA, these guys all agreed to a system that was supposed to make everybody rich. They shared wrestlers, stayed in their own zones, and, most importantly, they all recognized one NWA World Heavyweight Champion. This champion was literally the lifeblood of the whole system. He was the only star everyone in the country knew. When the champ came to your town, it was a huge deal. It meant insane money, sold-out arenas, and it made the local hero challenging for the title look like an absolute superstar. The champion would travel the country, wrestling a different guy every single night, often going a full 60 minutes just to make the local guy look incredible. But here's where the paranoia kicks in. For the system to work, the champion had to be willing to lose the title whenever the NWA board, basically the most powerful promoters, voted for it. This wasn't just a suggestion, it was the one rule holding everything together. The champion got to carry the 10 pounds of gold, the belt that symbolized their power, but only if he agreed to lose it on command. But what if he just said no? This was the ultimate nightmare scenario for the NWA. A champion refusing to lose, called a double cross, could destroy the entire alliance overnight. Imagine spending weeks building up your local star for a title match, only for the champ to go off script, win the match, and leave with the belt. The local guy would be ruined. His top star would look like a total failure, the fans would feel ripped off, and the promoter's business would be destroyed. A double cross could kill wrestling in a town for years. If a champion could hold the title hostage, the NWA board would have zero power, and the whole thing would explode into chaos. And this wasn't just a crazy theory, they were already having major headaches. Even a legend like Lou Thez was known for being incredibly protective of his title. But more recently, the NWA had a huge problem with their champion, Dory Funk Jr. Dory Jr. held the title for an insane 4+ years, from 1969 to 1973. His matches were amazing, and he made the title feel important. But as time went on, people started whispering that he was unreliable. He defended the title less and less, and it was causing a lot of drama. The NWA board decided it was time for a change. Their chosen successor? A crazy popular fan favorite from Oklahoma named Jack Brisco. The match was set. Brisco was about to become the new face of the NWA. And then, disaster. Right before the big match, Dory Funk Jr. had a pickup truck accident on his dad's ranch. He claimed a shoulder injury made it impossible for him to wrestle. The match was off. To a lot of the NWA bosses, the story sounded way too convenient. The rumor, which still exists today, was that Dory's dad didn't want his son to lose to a pure wrestler like Brisco because it would make him look bad. Real or fake injury, the result was the same. The NWA's plan was a total mess. The trust that held the alliance together was breaking. They had to do something, and fast. They needed someone to get the belt off Funk Jr. without starting a war. So they turned to a legitimately tough brawler from Kansas City named Harley Race. Race was a certified tough guy who would not take no for an answer. In May of 1973, Dory Funk Jr. finally lost the title to Harley Race. This whole insane episode proved the NWA's worst fears were real. They dodged a bullet, but it was a massive warning sign. They needed more than a great wrestler or a big moneymaker as their champion. They needed an insurance policy. They needed a guy whose skills were so real, so undeniable, that nobody would even think about double-crossing him. They needed a policeman, a hooker, a shooter. They needed a champion who could physically force a pin on any man in the world. And they already knew exactly who that was. His name was Jack Brisco. In the wild world of pro wrestling, the word shooter meant something special. It meant you were not for show. A shooter was a legit grappler, a real fighting machine whose skills were terrifyingly real. And in the 1970s, nobody was a better definition of shooter than Jack Brisco. To understand why Brisco was the NWA's perfect weapon, you have to look at his insane career in amateur wrestling. Born in Oklahoma, Brisco came from a state that produced absolute legends. He looked up to Danny Hodge, another Oklahoman whose insane grip strength was the stuff of nightmares. Brisco followed that path to Oklahoma State University, a college wrestling powerhouse. And what he did there wasn't just impressive, it was unbelievable. He was a two-time All-American. In 1964, he was the runner-up for the national championship. The next year, 1965, he came back and was literally perfect. He became the first Native American to win an NCAA Division I wrestling national championship. But here's the most insane stat of all. During his entire undefeated senior year, not a single opponent scored a takedown on him. Not one. Let that sink in. At the highest level of college wrestling, against the best athletes in the country, nobody could take him down. He was a fortress on the mat. He had a mix of balance, speed, and raw power that was almost unheard of. This was the foundation of Jack Brisco, the shooter. When he turned pro in 1965, he brought that terrifying legitimacy with him. Trained by another Oklahoma legend, Leroy McGurk, his skills were instantly dominant. In a business of giant brawlers and crazy characters, Brisco was different. He was athletic, good-looking, and had a quiet confidence. He didn't have to scream and shout because his wrestling did all the talking. He moved like a panther, and his technical skills were light years ahead of everyone. The other wrestlers knew he was the real deal. They saw it every night. Their matches were a show, but Brisco was the guy who could end the show whenever he wanted. Even the toughest guys in a tough business were scared of him. The legendary Lou Thez, the original shooter champion, called Brisco one of the toughest and most highly skilled wrestlers of the last 50 years. Coming from Thez, that was like a killer recognizing another killer. Promoters immediately saw his value. He wasn't just a great performer, he was a legit athlete who made the entire sport feel more real. Fans believed he could win any fight because, well, he probably could. He became an instant star, winning titles everywhere and building a reputation as one of the best in the world. But for the NWA board, his amateur record was a guarantee. In a world of smoke and mirrors, Brisco's skill was an open secret. There was no bluffing him. If some opponent decided to get tough, Brisco could tie him in a knot, stretch him until he begged to be pinned, and enforce the NWA's rules without breaking a sweat. He was the walking, talking solution to their biggest problem. He was the enforcer they could build an entire era around. He was a champion they could trust, not just to make money, but to physically protect the 10 pounds of gold. The NWA didn't just need a new champion, they needed a new kind of champion. They needed the Oklahoma Machine. With the Dory Funk Jr. drama finally over, the NWA put their original plan back into motion fast. Harley Race was a respected shooter who got the job done. His whole purpose was to be a bridge, a short-term champ to get the title from the chaos of the Funk era to the new era of Jack Brisco. On July 20th, 1973, in Houston, Texas, the stage was set for the handover. The match between Harley Race and Jack Brisco was more than just a match. It was a transfer of power. In one corner, you had Race, the rugged enforcer. In the other, Brisco, the technical genius who was the future. It was a battle between two of the most legitimate wrestlers on earth, and it was the perfect way to crown a new king. No questions, no drama. Brisco defeated Race, a man whose toughness was legendary, to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. But the craziest part of that night, the NWA literally brought out a brand new championship belt, the iconic domed globe belt that would become the 10 pounds of gold. The NWA president presented the new belt to Harley Race in the ring right before the match, only for Race to lose it to Brisco minutes later. Jack Brisco was the first man to ever hold and wear the title that legends like Ric Flair would make famous. In fact, he was the only champion to ever wear it with its original red velvet strap and a personal nameplate. With that belt around his waist, Brisco was a perfect champion. He was the ultimate road warrior, an absolute workhorse. The insane travel schedule that destroyed other champions was just another day for him. He was 100% reliable. In an interview, Brisco remembered the crazy schedule. A different city every night, a different opponent every night, a lot of times going to an hour draw. The traveling, I was pretty worn out. And he did it all without a single complaint. Promoters everywhere could book Jack Brisco and know he'd show up, deliver an incredible main event, and most importantly, do business the right way. The era of chaos was over. For 500 straight days, Jack Brisco held the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, bringing total stability to the alliance. He defended the title across the entire globe against a list of absolute legends: Johnny Valentine, Stan Stasiak, Abdullah the Butcher, Gene Kiniski, and the Sheik. Every challenger was made to look like a monster, but in the end, the master technician always won. Even when he lost the title, it was a perfectly planned business move that proved his value. On December 2nd, 1974, during a tour of Japan, Brisco dropped the belt to the Japanese icon, Giant Baba. This wasn't a crisis, it was a genius move. A title change in Japan was huge, drawing insane money and making the NWA's partners there happy. Brisco, the ultimate pro, did the job. That 1 week reign for Baba was a perfect example of how the system was supposed to work, all thanks to a champion you could trust completely. His second reign lasted another 366 days. Finally, on December 10, 1975, his time as the NWA's top guy came to a planned end. It was only right that he would lose the title to Terry Funk, the younger brother of the man he was supposed to beat for the belt almost 3 years earlier. This move kicked off one of the most legendary rivalries in wrestling history, the Briscos versus the Funks, a feud that would make everyone a ton of money for years. The smooth transition from Funk Jr. to Race, from Race to Brisco, the strategic move with Baba, and finally passing the belt to Terry Funk. This entire sequence showed the NWA was back in control. Jack Brisco's time as champion was the cure for the NWA's paranoia. He wasn't just a great wrestler, he was the perfect champion. He understood his job, he respected the business, and he had the skill to back it all up. He was the anchor that secured the NWA during one of its craziest times, making sure the 10 pounds of gold stayed the biggest prize in all of wrestling. Jack Brisco was not the flashiest champion. In a time when wrestling was getting more and more over the top, Brisco was a throwback. He didn't have the insane promo skills of Dusty Rhodes or the wild style of Ric Flair. His greatness wasn't on the microphone, it was in the ring, spoken through the brutal language of wrestling holds. He was a quiet storm in a loud business, and he brought something more important than charisma. He brought reality. Across his 2 reigns as NWA champion, for a total of over 860 days, Jack Brisco injected a massive dose of legitimacy into the sport right when it needed it most. He was the bridge between wrestling's tough carnival past and the sports entertainment spectacle that was coming. By being the ultimate shooter, the enforcer who protected the title with his unmatched skill, he made sure the NWA championship never lost its value. There were no double crosses on his watch, no backstage drama that threatened to tear the alliance apart. He was the anchor of stability that let the entire wrestling world revolve around him. Just being in the ring with him created new stars. Beating Jack Brisco meant something, because everyone, from the fans to the wrestlers in the back, knew how unbelievably tough he was. He was the gold standard, the ultimate test for every top star in the business. After his title reigns, Brisco didn't just disappear. He and his brother Gerald formed one of the greatest tag teams ever. The Brisco brothers were an unstoppable force, winning the NWA World Tag Team Championships multiple times and continuing their legendary feud with the Funks. This just proved what a pro he was. Whether he was the top guy or part of a team, Jack Brisco was a master of wrestling. And his influence went beyond the ring. In the late 1970s, the Brisco brothers discovered some charismatic young bodybuilder playing bass in a band. They saw something in him and introduced him to a trainer. That young man was Terry Bollea, who you probably know as Hulk Hogan. So in a crazy twist, the man who stood for old-school realism discovered the man who would become the ultimate wrestling superhero. Brisco's career ended just as the world he helped stabilize began to change forever. He and his brother were part owners of Georgia Championship Wrestling, a key NWA territory. In 1984, in a move that signaled the end of the old system, they sold their shares to a rapidly expanding Vince McMahon, which helped lead to the WWF's national takeover. Brisco retired from the ring a year later, in 1985, ending a career built on skill, integrity, and pure toughness. The fear that haunted the NWA, the fear of a champion going rogue, was beaten, not by threats, but by finding one man whose character and skill made betrayal impossible. Jack Brisco was more than a champion. He was the NWA's ultimate insurance policy. He was the shooter who saved the title, a quiet guardian who made sure that the 10 pounds of gold was an honor backed up by the most legitimate skills the business had ever seen. His 2008 induction into the WWE Hall of Fame was the ultimate sign of respect for a man who, without being the loudest guy in the room, was often the most important. Jack Brisco's story is absolutely insane. A reminder that before all the spectacle, there was the sport. He was the silent enforcer, the real deal whose skills made a scripted world feel 100% real. If you thought this story was crazy, smash that like button and subscribe for more insane stories from the golden age of wrestling. And I have to know, comment below, who do you think is the most legitimate shooter in wrestling history? Thanks for watching.